Okay, I want to show you today one of the most important factors to understanding the housing market in 2025. This is something very prevalent here in Denver, Colorado, and I imagine it is across the country as well. It's something that's used to combat the affordability issues that we're seeing. And also, it is the biggest factor obscuring what's actually going on with home prices, net home prices when they're sold. Just one topic. This is not going to be a long one, but I've mentioned it on the channel before, and I want to make sure I dive into it to explain exactly what's going on with these seller concessions. That is the concept. And by the way, if you're new here, Sam Newman, I run a real estate team here in the Denver Metro. It's our goal to be your go-to resource for anything real estate. If there's anything we can do for you, please do reach out. So the concept here is seller concessions and how it obscures the true sales price for a lot of the homes that are being sold in the Denver Metro. And right here, I have a graph of median and average sold price over time. So this is comparing sold price. We can use either one. They do basically the same thing. I guess I like looking at median a little bit more because it controls for the outliers. But what you'll see here is these prices kind of peaked here in 2022 and then a seasonal up and down since then. But we are essentially flat since the peak of the market in 2022, or even up a little bit depending on where you're looking and how you're looking. And you see on the bottom, year over year sales prices. For average, they're actually up 2.8%, median up 0.8%, so much less, but up nonetheless. And given these factors going on, interest rates and affordability and economic challenges and everything else, it is a bit shocking to see sold prices stay even flat from where they were at the peak of the market before interest rates shot way up. And the truth is the housing market has been very resilient. Demand, supply, low supply, still a lot of pent-up demand have a lot to do with that. And even with economic challenges, the Denver population has a fair amount of buying power with these homes. But to truly understand what's going on, we have to look past just sold prices, and we need to look at seller concessions. So here's what a seller concession is. It's something that can happen on any real estate transaction with a loan attached to it. So that's a key caveat. It doesn't work on a cash transaction. There's no place for it. But anytime you're buying a house with a loan, you're offering a price, a sales price, let's say it's $600,000 to the seller. What you can do is, rather than ask for money off that, rather than ask for $10,000 off the purchase price, so take it down to $590. Instead, you can still offer $600,000 for a purchase price, but with a $10,000 seller concession. For the most part, functionally, to the seller, it's the same thing. It's a net price of $590,000. It doesn't matter. But to the buyer, it's much, much different because that seller concession is a cash back credit at closing. So if you do a lower purchase price, you're just, in most cases, lowering your loan amount a little bit, which makes a difference. But on a monthly payment front, not a huge difference. With this cash concession, you can apply it to any of your closing costs. So just normal run-of-the-mill closing costs, title, HOA fees if you want, or the place where most people are using them right now, and why seller concessions have become so prevalent here in 2025. You can use it to buy down your interest rate. And if you take, in this example, $10,000 to buy down your interest rate, that is going to lower your monthly payment a lot more. Typically, every transaction is different, than $10,000 off the purchase price. So it's a very little cheat code, a very little hack to help combat this affordability issue. And because of that, as I mentioned before, it has become very, very popular. Here is a chart that shows how prevalent seller concessions are. And this breaks it down by price point. But just at the bottom, cutting to the chase. So this is just looking at single family detached homes, but attached tells a similar story too. All prices, there are 66.6% of transactions that have a seller concession right now. Meaning, basically, every time a home is sold in the Denver Metro, 2/3 of the time, it has some sort of seller concession. Now, this concession can take a number of forms. It can be the $10, $12, $15, $20,000 major concession we've discussed, or it could be something smaller, $1,000, $500 for inspection items. You see this a lot. During inspection, seller will offer the buyer a credit to cover something. So it really spans the gamut, and there are limits about how high you can go. It's based on your type of loan and your loan percentage, but on many transactions, $20,000 here in the Denver Metro is not out of the range of possibilities. So you see it stratified a bit by price point. Lower price points, they're not as important. $200,000 to $300,000 is probably probably a lot of cash deals happening there. But then the $400,000 to $600,000 range, $600,000 to $800,000, and $800,000 to $1 million. All of those are happening in the 70s, or in the $800,000 to $1 million case, 69.7%, so almost 70%. So the majority of the time, on the majority of transactions happening in the Denver metro, there is a seller concession accompanying it. And using data whiz Megan Aller's data, we can actually look at the average size of a seller concession. And you see it here, and it goes up by price point, which would make sense. 3 to 4 million. Average size is about 20 grand, but even 1 to 1.5 million, we're at almost $16,000 in average size of seller concession. And across all prices, $12,263. So the average seller concession right now is more than 12 grand. And the reason I'm hammering this point, or beating a dead horse, depending on who you are, is because that's a lot of money. And that factors greatly into the net purchase price that sellers are getting. And so if we're just looking at purchase price information, that data is not included in here. And that over $12,000 on the median sold price in the Denver metro, it's $630,000, almost 2% of the purchase price. Enough to take the median sold price from positive year over year to negative year over year. Now, caution, because that's kind of bro math. We're not factoring in the seller concession for last year when we're balancing out those two numbers. But seller concessions are getting more prevalent and greater. So I'm not going to do an apples to apples comparison. But the point is, while we see purchase prices staying steady or even rising a little bit, these seller concessions are also rising. And that factors into the net price that these homes are selling for. And if you're just a normal person looking on Zillow, that information is not on there. Those data are not available to the public. It's available in the MLS if you're an agent, but not if you're just browsing Zillow. So let's take this random home that sold in October, purchase price $729,500. Well, I happen to know there was a $10,000 seller concession on that price too. You see it nowhere in the Zillow information. But if you're to go in the MLS, which you only have access to if you're a real estate professional, and look at that same closed transaction, you got to scroll down to the bottom, but there it is in the closing information. Seller concessions, $10,000. And they even show you in the MLS the net close price, which makes sense because this is the true close price of this home. So the point is, if you're working with a real estate agent, which if you're buying and selling, for most people, I hope you are, regardless of which side you're on, you need to make sure your agent is using these seller concessions in the data they are giving you. If they're comping out properties as a buyer, we need to be looking at the seller concessions to figure out if the property we're looking at buying is in line with the market price. And as a seller, these seller concessions are very important to factor in. When your agent's giving you an idea of how much your home will sell for, they have to factor these seller concessions in because they come directly out of your bottom line as a seller. And the purchase price with the concession gives us the true market value of the home. Like I said, if we can do anything for you, please do reach out. There is a form below. And hey, I will leave you with a video here that gives my full market report, my most recent market report, in case you want to dive into the Denver real estate market a little bit more. Otherwise, love you. Talk soon.